So when it came time for me to move my research process, my research reading process from essentially pen and printed paper to a digital realm, I thought a lot about what I wanted to bring along from my current process. In the past, when I would do research, when I would read research, I love to print things out. I love to have them on my table. I love the tangibleness of it, being able to shift through the pages. I like to have a notebook open on the side where I can write things down. And I like to be able to highlight on the pages. So I borrowed a lot of that stuff from how I would do this physically. If you look at the app today, it takes a lot of things from the physical nature of paper. You can open multiple papers up, you can lay them out side by side, you can open up your notes and lay it side by side. And I borrowed a lot of the aesthetics and the affordances from how I actually work with this stuff on a table. Now, what convinced me to move this process into the digital realm and actually build this was the advent of AI, because AI has this ability to meet us exactly where we are at and explain something from there. It can help us go deeper, it can help us go wider. And I was convinced that if I was to bring my process of reading research into the digital realm and put it alongside AI that can explain stuff for me, that I'd make this whole process much more efficient for myself. And that's pretty much what ended up being the research app. Another one of these products is Distill, something that I'm actively working on these days. Now, Distill is a fair bit different from research because it's far less constrained. Distill really exists because I had a bunch of ideas floating around in my head, like the way tweets work, the way threads work, the way I take notes, the way I've been taking notes in the past in my Obsidian vault. And I wanted to take essentially my routine process of reading and understanding things, the way I develop ideas, and essentially have a place where I can put them. Distill already has entries going as far back as 2023, thousands of them. I've even connected my Obsidian vault to it so that it has hundreds of pages of notes and documentation that I've been writing over many years. And what this allows for me is to essentially have everything that I'm thinking about, everything that I've thought about in one space, and put that alongside a bunch of agents, different kinds of agents, like strategic ones, explorers, coaches, analysts, some with historical lenses, and essentially have them look at all of this information from all of these different perspectives and surface what's interesting to me. This whole process brings a whole lot of serendipity to my process these days because, for example, if I was to talk about what's next for Distill, it's able to draw from months of ideas that I've collected, months of me talking about the things I'm doing, the things I've done, and essentially instantly respond to me with a summary of all of that stuff, pulling from all of that inspiration. And this makes my process, my routine process of dealing with information, dealing with new information, and developing ideas much more efficient. And it brings a lot of new information into my process that otherwise would have taken me a lot of time. In the past, I would quite literally have to flip back on my journal, go through page by page, or open up my Obsidian and jump from tag to tag through this constellation of things. And this whole process was pretty much limited by the amount of time I could spend on it, as good as how my recall is. And in many cases, I'd have to jump across sometimes dozens of pages of things to piece together some insights for what I'm working on at hand. And AI is excellent at this. AI is awesome at looking at a ton of information, looking for things that are related to each other, pulling from it and putting it into context. And that's pretty much why Distill exists today. Another one of the apps that I could speak about is Mudbook. This is a little different to both Distill and research in that I'm not drawing inspiration from my own workflows or my own process. This was something that I built for my partner because she's into a lot of pottery, and potters have this process where no two pottery pieces are really the same in that you could change the type of clays, the amount of time it spends in the kiln, the sort of process you go through, the shapes, the way you glaze it, the layers of glazes that you use. It affects your final output. So potters tend to pay a lot of attention to the process that they follow that lead to outcomes, and they keep track of the ones that are good, the ones that they've learned. And I wanted to build a little app that can record all of this stuff. And I spent a bunch of time talking to my partner, visiting their pottery studio, and sort of borrowed a lot of affordances from the world of pottery when I extended it into the digital realm. For example, shelves. It's a pretty common thing in a pottery studio to have shelves and shelves of pottery. This brings that into the digital realm with this app. And it was a lot of fun to build because I was able to, for one, spend some time fairly systematically following this process of paying attention, looking for interesting things, looking for things that stand out to me, and connecting that with what people needed to do with this app. And those are a couple of examples of apps that I've worked on in the recent past, and to show you a little bit of the type of process that goes into coming up with the way something looks and feels, and sort of what leads to it. It's going to be different for anything that you work on. It's going to be different based on the type of people that you're building for, and it's going to depend on the type of stuff that you pay attention to. I hope that's helpful. I want to do more dives into designing things at some point down the line. And of course, what follows this process of paying attention and sort of building opinions about how I want to design something and having these aesthetics in your head is the technical side of it that follows, which is essentially using tools like Figma or designing in code to actually produce these things. But I want to focus less so on that stuff because I feel like it's a rapidly changing space. The tools that we have available to us when we design things are consistently getting better. And AI as a part of this process where you can explain the type of thing that you want and it can produce the outcomes for you is also a great way this space is changing. And I feel like the difference maker really comes from what are you paying attention to? What are you noticing that others don't notice? What can you pull out from all of the things that you notice that others will look at and go, that makes sense?